Yeah, who say the way? Woo crew going live, in five. In a time where you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? You got 10, got Graham, they all part of the fam. We got Fran, got Tess, and calling the man. Professor Ross, who started the plan. Got Lauren and Sajin, yeah, they heading the team. Got Kate and Kelsey, ain't nothing to tell me. Marcel and Joe got it hot like Nelly. Saya make the group go higher. Karina, we need her, she'll get it done when it's required. And I'm the one who's supplying all the fire. Woo crew, name a group who fly. Woo crew going live, in five. In a time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? Woo crew going live, in five. In a time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like ours? Gone.
Hey y'all, it's your man Tan here to bring you guys episode 7 of the Woo Crew interview. The generous guest of this episode is the amazing Francis Lubega. He's our very own Holy Cross graduate of class 2020. During his time at Holy Cross, he wrote a thesis on the black perspective within hip hop, which I know you guys want to know more about. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Hi, we're just gonna introduce ourselves again. All right, so I'm Graham. You guys can introduce yourselves. So,
Hey, I'm Tan.
all right,
I'm Colin.
Are y'all all like what grades are you guys in?
we're all freshmen.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
probably an interesting an interesting start to the college years for y'all.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
definitely a
it
very
is.
interesting start.
Unique.
Yeah. So I don't think I heard you there.
Oh, it's my audio like okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just-
I hear you now. You just cut out before.
Yeah, I was saying that it's probably quite dramatic for y'all, like entering college in these circumstances. I can even imagine what that's like.
Yeah,
So
it's tough, but we're getting by.
Yeah, it's going well.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we'll get right into it. So you think you could give us a short summary about your paper, and like your findings?
yeah, so when I was invited by the social department to sort of embark on a thesis journey, I didn't know what to start at first, but because of my fascination with like hip hop and um, what was it called? Just my relationship with it over the years, it just sort of like sparked that interest for me. So initially, I wanted to study like misogyny in hip hop and how that's portrayed and conveyed. But then through that research, I noticed that it was so expensive and so out there, uh, and I wouldn't really be contributing, bring anything new to it. So as I kept reading through, I just came across the absent population that's studied, which is the Black population in hip hop. Even though hip hop is uh, dominated and controlled, well, not controlled, but dominated and projected by predominantly Black people. So I was like, oh, it'll be curious to study what Black people think of hip hop. So I just sort of, through that narrative, I just kind of embarked on that journey, focusing on, for example, uh, what Black people think of hip hop, how do you view hip hop, how do you listen to it, and all that. So my research question was, what are Black perceptions of hip hop, and how do they come to terms with hip hop's colonization and exploitation by white forces, predominantly white forces. So what I did was I did a comparative study. So I sampled a group of senior Black women and senior Black men at HC and compared their views and thoughts and relationship with hip hop. And through that, I was able to sort of find, pretty similar and also distinct findings. And that basically got in my paper.
Awesome. What is unique about hip hop that drew you in compared to the other genres of music?
I think because right now it's obviously I would say, in my opinion, the most popular genre of music right now of our day, of our generation. I think it's taken over from pop and R&B and rock and country and all other genres that are out there right now. So the reason why I think it's so unique, it's basically because it started from the grassroots level. It started as a gateway for liberation, self-expression, as well as basically trying to or attempting to bring Black struggles into fruition, and sort of map out the different ways that you can make space through music, but also educate and mobilize and liberate your community. So that fascinated me, and I thought it was interesting how that process shifted over the years, and I was obviously intrigued by what was controlling it and shifting it. So typically, when you think of hip hop, right, you think of hip hop is it's a Black genre. That's what you think of. But when you look at who controls hip hop is predominantly controlled by powerful white forces. Like when you look at the music industry, you look at the record labels and you look at promotion rate labels, radio play, and all that, and you put into play, you see the majority of people making profit from it are those rich white labels and rich white forces, and basically they kind of control the narrative of the majority of hip hop songs that come out. So if a rapper wants to make a song about big booty hoes or smoking weed or all the other stuff, the record label gets the final say of what's going to go into the video and what's going to go into the song. So they're controlling basically what they gravitate their rappers and their artists towards. And the rappers don't really have much control in what they say, unless they're unsigned, or they have their own label, or they have their own umbrella under a big label. Like, for example, when you think of like Jay-Z, for example, when he started out, of course, he was signed and he was controlled over the time of what he was producing. And then after he got his own thing, you saw the shift of the kind of music he was making, right? More socially conscious, less about, drug usage or, belittling women and all the other stuff. So I just sort of, I think it's very unique how a genre can go from grassroots being controlled by Black people trying to make space to being exploited and sort of gravitated towards, problematic messages and views about, Black people, Black interaction, and the Black community overall.
Um, you mentioned labels. So what's your opinion on the label industry and the relationship between artists?
So I think it's quite fascinating. I think the corporate control of artists and of hip hop music is quite fascinating. And I say that insofar that when you take a look at mainstream music, right? For example, right now the mainstream raps I can think of is like Cardi B, um, um, Kodak Black, or even like the mainstream raps you would think of, like, and you see the sort of messages that they convey in their music, and like the popular songs. For example, I think the most popular song last year was the Cardi B song with Meg Thee Stallion, right? And it caused obviously national outrage because it was provocative and overly sexual. And when you see like trends of songs like that always get the most radio play and getting the most likes and to get the most promotion, you start to wonder, like, right, like, why is it that those songs, why is it that labels gravitate their artists towards producing that kind of music, right? It's because obviously America has a culture of sex, and that's what sells. So when you look at artists that are more in the underground, like artists like Hobson or Rhapsody, and you listen to their songs, right? They're more socially conscious. Like they talk about, real issues that happen in the Black community in the world overall. For example, Rhapsody released a song about where's the Black leadership, where's the Black church, and Hobson talks about, the relationship between religion and the Black community and what that means and what is the positive and negatives of that, right? And those are obviously educational messages that everybody could listen to rather than just going to search for a book and reading that, right? But it's not mainstream because record labels do not promote that kind of music, right? They're more likely to promote music that they know the majority of the people would want to listen to. And another fascinating part about hip hop too is like the majority of the hip hop audience is white. It's white teens, right? And record labels know that. They know that a lot of white teens in suburban America that consume hip hop and want to listen to hip hop. So they want to feed their appetite, right? And a lot of white teens that grown up in white America, they're very fascinated by the Black culture because, as we all know, America is mostly segregated, right? So you basically grow up around people that look like you for the most part, and you become fascinated by others. So how do you attain that? Hip hop's an outlet for that. You sort of get messages about Black community, about Black women from hip hop, and as the kind of view that you gravitate yourself towards. And record labels are very intentional about that because they know that they can make money through that. So what they're going to do? They're going to put on the radio, they're going to release these videos and promote their artists to be sexual, to be hypermasculine, to abuse drugs, because those are fascinational things that everybody wanted to see in a sense, predominantly the white youth, because of course, like if they don't have access to that, the best way they can get is go on YouTube and search up Cardi B or Nicki Minaj or Kodak or Lil Yachty and all these people, and kind of like look at that kind of music from that fascinational lens and kind of feed their own appetite for it.
I actually wrote a paper on the relationship between labels and artists for our last paper about hip hop and identity. And I mentioned in my paper whether I feel in the future whether the industry can come up with a better, more beneficial way to have a better relationship between labels and artists. And in turn, I also proposed the idea of potentially leaving labels in the past, as we have all these other major platforms like Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube, where artists can now stream all of their music and produce a career for that. What would you take on that be?
I think that's a great way to think about it. The only reservation that I have for that is artists these days now make songs off concerts, right? They don't really make songs off streams. Like, for example, if you stream a song on Spotify, that's like 80 cents that goes to the artist. And that 80 cents is split between the label, the promotion, and whatever. So the artist gets like 10 cents from one stream of a song, right? Compared to like going on tour, right? Where you can, through ticket sales, through selling your merchandise, through, promoting like your other businesses, right? That attains more of like a profit for you. So I think like ideally it should be like that, right? Like you want to break away from the label and you want to break away from that control, so you have some more freedom, right? Because right now everybody can make a song and go on Spotify and go on Apple Music and release a song, or SoundCloud, whatever, right? And it's easier that way. But the job that the labels do is they have sort of like a pool with radios, for example. A lot of them have relationships with radios that play the music, and also they have a way to promote and captivate the fan base, so they can sell, ticket sales at concerts and things of that nature. So I think it would be difficult to sort of break away from the labels and to sort of like try to hold them accountable through that lens, because ultimately they're always going to be looking to make profit. And if you're gonna take an artist like Rhapsody and who's gonna buy her tickets, right? Like, how many kids will want to go listen to a Black woman speaking about nappy hair or speaking about Black church? Like, nobody want to go listen to that, right? They want to go see women twerk on stage, or Lil Yachty smoking a shit ton. Like, that's a gravitational pull that those guys have, and that's what the audience has an appetite for. So I think when you look at it from that lens, you have to look at the metrics of it and the financial aspect of it, right? Because most artists would want to project and display great music, but they wouldn't make any money if they do that. And labels know that, so if it's not bringing the bag for them, it's never going to be conducive. So they're always gonna look to exploit things that will in turn make them profit. So I think if they want to break away from the cycle of label control, I think you have to promote labels that focus on grassroots issues. For example, I know like J. Cole, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with J. Cole's Dreamville label, right? All the artists on Dreamville are not mainstream, right? But there are a lot of great hip hop artists on there that project really great music. There's like gospel artists on there that focus on gospel rap. There's also artists um, that focus on political issues, social issues, and things of that nature. And very few of them ever make it through, even though the label supports uh, their narratives and their messages. Um, so I guess like the problem also would be like how do you shift the audience? What is a way we can shift the audience to sort of like influence them to want to listen to music that's better rather than listen to music that's problematic?
I think that's a very good answer to Graham's question. And now moving on from labels, I would like to hear more about your personal experience with your finding in hip hop. So in your paper, you said that you got into hip hop about in 2008, a very young age, and you have been a fan of hip hop since. Going into Holocaust, has Holocaust influenced your view or your perception of hip hop and community at all?
I wouldn't say like it influenced it greatly, but I think it provided a different perspective because hip hop exposed me to a diverse array of hip hop listeners, which I appreciated that because I kind of got to see what everybody's trying from it. Like, you guys haven't experienced the party scene at Holy Cross yet, but um, well, maybe you have, but you'll see that, for example, at parties, like every party you go to, they play hip hop. Like whether it's a white party or whether it's international student party or whether it's students of color parties, like you would get a sense that hip hop is universally recognized in each setting there, and it's listened to differently. So, for example, when you go to like off campus, off housing parties, and hip hop is played there, right? There'll be a few black kids in the audience looking to see all the other white kids who might potentially slip in the N word in there, right? And that's interesting because it's like even though we're all there, we're all enjoying the music, right? We all experiencing it differently, right? So I guess the scene that Holy Cross exposed me to was that it's like there's certain limitations when you go to certain parties because obviously you can't project the N-word as a white person. That's for obvious reasons. Uh, but then you go to a black party and with predominantly black student parties, everybody's saying the N-word. And that's kind of the solidarity thing that happens there, right? And then you go to international students party, right? Where sometimes they play like K-pop or other things, or even hip hop in general. It's also a different dynamic there because they also don't, even though they are people of color, they wouldn't project the N-word also. So I guess like the nuances there was sort of very intriguing to me, and just how different spaces kind of have a relationship with hip hop and how you kind of associate with it. So ultimately, I would say the one perspective that Holy Cross gave me about hip hop, it exposed me to not how diverse it is, but also how it is experienced regarding the social space that you're at.
Thank you. And you also mentioned that hip hop can be very empowering for the black audience. How have you been personally like empowered by hip hop?
Yeah. So I would say like the early recollection that I kind of remember that, like, for example, in 2000, I think it was 2010, 2012, I went to my first protest. It was a Black Lives Matter protest, and hip hop was widely played there. Like you listen to like "Fuck the Police" by N.W.A. You listening to like Kendrick Lamar, and then you also listen to like Tupac and all these other great artists, and J. Cole and all that, which I thought was very fascinating, right? Because like you know the songs that the U.S. government once deemed as controversial and terrible were the songs that are used to convey messages of police brutality and gang violence and gun violence and all that at the protest. And I found that very fascinating, right? Because it's like it kind of shows you how you know a white person, a black person, or an Asian person, or a Latina person can listen to one song but perceive it completely differently, right? For example, when I listen to NWA, right, I'm hearing anger from young black men who have crazy problematic interaction with the police on a daily basis, and they're projecting that anger, and they're saying that they want better, right? But if a white mom listens to that, she's like, "Oh my god, like that's so vulgar and hyper masculine and police hating." But it's not, because for me as a black man, of course, I've had my own interactions with the police or even my own interaction with the world and how they view me. It's like I can convey of that, right? And I could sort of I could perceive like why Easy E would say fuck the police, or Ice Cube would say that you don't give a fuck about nobody because all they care about is a badge and a gun, right? Like when they say that, I'm like, I can perceive that and I can understand that. But a white kid, because they probably have positive interactions with the police, they might have a completely different view of that. And I think that's why hip hop is so nuanced and important, because like it is people's lived experiences. No matter how problematic or controversial it is, it's still people's lived experiences for the most part, and you can't take away that component from it. And I think that's what hip hop has taught me over a lifetime. It's like I don't always relate to what the rappers are saying. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of jewelry, so like those narratives don't fit the picture that I project on a daily basis. But there's other issues that I can relate to, and I feel like everybody in a sense can relate to hip hop. Like even white kids can relate to hip hop in a sense. For example, if you're talking about, I think Juice WRLD was talking about, issues with mental health, right? The white kid can relate to that if they have issues with mental health, or issues with family or whatever. So I think that's what's nuanced about it, and that's what's taught me over time.
Yeah. I think that's about it. But thank you very much for coming. We enjoyed hearing your responses. You guys have anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks for being here.
Yes, same. We really appreciate it. I think it was very insightful for all of us, and it'll be very interesting for the viewer to watch as well.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you guys having me as well, and thank you for reading my lengthy thesis. I know I rambled a lot on it, but hopefully, like you learn one thing or two. And obviously, Professor Ross is like, we got close to my thesis process. She helped me a lot through a lot of research and stuff like that too. So she's a great resource, and she loves hip hop as much as I do. So if you guys are interested, you can always take an eye on her and enjoy the college experience. I know you don't really have that right now, but it'll come, and hopefully by next year everything will be normal, and you guys could get all the crazy and all the fun stuff that AC has to offer. So enjoy the process, and I'm happy to help whenever throughout the project or whenever you guys need me. So just feel free to reach out, and I appreciate y'all too.
And now a word from our state rep, Daniel Donahue, about an important nonprofit organization located in Worcester. We hope you will support in solidarity with the Woo Crew.
Hi, I'm Daniel Donahue, Massachusetts State Representative for the 16th Worcester District. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a bit more about Abby's House, a nonprofit organization that values women from diverse backgrounds and experiences in my hometown of Worcester, Mass. The mission of Abby's House is to provide shelter and affordable housing, as well as advocacy and support services to homeless, battered, and low-income women with or without children. This is an important organization in our community, values hospitality, diversity and inclusion, compassion and respect, women's self-determination, and collective effort. Holy Cross was the first class to help support the women of Abby's House by providing volunteers to staff the shelter dating back to 1976. And Holy Cross students and alumni continue to partner with Abby's House by providing monetary, in-kind, and volunteer support. I hope you'll consider joining us by making a donation to Abby's House in honor of their 45th anniversary. Your donations will help to keep in operation the 79 units of supportive housing and 9 overnight shelter beds of Abby's House. Additionally, your donation will contribute to the wonderful programs of Abby's House, such as providing each woman with an advocate who helps her identify realistic goals and provides her with the tools she needs to achieve these goals. If you are able and willing to make a gift to this amazing nonprofit, please click the link accompanying this video. If you would like to learn more about Abby's House, including opportunities for volunteering, please visit them at abbyshouse.org. Thank you.
Thank you for your time listening to our state representative talk about this great opportunity to support the Worcester community. And now back to the Woo Crew for more excitement.